And you can see quite a few differences between adult and child lead poisoning. The signs and symptoms in adults versus the signs and symptoms in kids can be quite a bit different. And there's a good reason for that. We'll actually talk about this more later, but children have growing and developing tissues, so oftentimes the effects can be much more severe in kids because, as lead, and I'll talk about this in a little while too, lead doesn't really have a safe exposure level. So any amount of lead that is in a child in their growing tissues can cause quite a bit of damage. The American Academy of Pediatrics says that the bare minimum level of lead that you can tolerate is 10 micrograms per deciliter, which is very minuscule. If you come in at 10 micrograms per deciliter or higher, if you're a child, they're going to probably treat you. We'll talk about some treatments in just a bit too. 25 to 30 micrograms per deciliter in the blood for adults is probably the minimum tolerable level for lead. But again, it's even they've seen signs and symptoms in people who have come in at lower than that have lead poisoning, or they've shown some effects of having been exposed to lead. It's a molecule that's attached to a larger molecule that's called hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is attached to your red blood cells. Now this lead is going to interfere with a couple of the enzymes that make heme, one that's called ALA dehydratase, and another that's called ferroketolase. So basically what the cells do is this. When they're building red blood cells, let's say I got a red blood cell here, this red blood cell is going to have to carry a protein called hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a tetrameric protein, 4 pieces. Each of these hemoglobin proteins has to have a piece attached to it called heme. Lead keeps iron from binding to protoporphyrin, so zinc comes in and says, oh, what the heck, there's an empty seat, I'll sit there. You get high levels of this ZPP stuff. That's another way you can test for lead poisoning. It's pretty hard to find ZPP in somebody that hasn't been poisoned with lead.